For journalist Maria Hinojosa, art and story are borderless.
Flexible and malleable and
Let me ask you, what is a border, and are borders a positive thing or are they a negative thing? What does it mean when we talk about borders?
You know, Russ, I'm in Albuquerque. I don't live here. I wasn't raised here. But when I come to New Mexico, I'm always thinking about the land that I'm on. Where is this land? How did this come to be? And highly aware of the fact that had history moved in a different place, estaríamos hablando español aquí mismo. You know, we would be speaking Spanish, and we would probably not be talking about these particular issues. So for me, at the same time when I'm kind of like borders are something that is created, that is, can feel very suffocating, at the same time, my entire life has been spent crossing borders. So I understand the concept of borders, but it's right now in 2018, the whole concept has gotten warped. And I guess I just think so sadly now about the people who, because of that border, they can't see each other. And how does that possibly benefit us?
So you feel that borders can still be subjects of possibility and imagination?
I don't think that borders are going to disappear, so they have to become places of imagination and places where we can understand that there's another thing that's happening there, which is the fear of not having borders that are flexible and malleable, and that we're not afraid of that.
Now, this is the land of Bless Me Ultima, Rodolfo Anaya, here in New Mexico. Can literature help bridge these gaps?
Absolutely. If we don't have writers telling these stories, who else is going to do it? And, you know, Bless Me Ultima, actually, I remember my brother, he read it first. And I remember seeing that book as a little girl. He was older than me. And he was reading that book in Chicago in grammar school. So a work like Bless Me Ultima, who started this kind of tradition of Chicano literature and another way of seeing the world of this area, it was not reduced to here, this part of the country. We were reading it all across the country. And like that book, there are so many that are helping us to understand who we are. So what we need now is we need more writers. We need more writers who are prepared to trust their own voice. And what scares me, Russ, is that there's so much shame around who we are right now. I get this from my students at DePaul, where I'm a visiting scholar, that there's a lot of shame and invisibility. And sometimes I worry that they're internalizing this and that they don't feel that their stories are valuable. And of course, as a journalist and as a professor, what I'm telling them is write, take notes, document the conversations that you're having with your mom and dad who are undocumented. Write that down. It may not mean anything to you right now in the moment, but that's the written logs of this moment in history. So I'm telling all of us, frankly, to be keeping a record of this moment.
But can art be used to bridge two cultures, whether it's the American and the Mexican, our multiple identities? Is it something that can bridge a better understanding between us?
I think that art is about crossing all borders. So that, for example, I can love the work of Leah Farsayer, who's doing Cholo Goth with prayers. I can also love the work of Van Gogh, because art does not have borders. That's the beauty about art. That's the beauty about poetry. It doesn't matter. You can love Pablo Neruda and E.E. Cummings. Sometimes people think of us as, well, you know, you're Latino, that must mean that you only like Latino art, or you... No, art is borderless, and that's why it's so deeply transformative and hopeful. So I think that the experience of art for us has always been about being open-minded and having the possibility of believing in magic, because art is really the alchemy of creation.
Can you share an interview that you've done, and you've done many, that have really stuck with you over the years?
You know, the first one that I always say, because it really is extraordinary, was being able to spend time with Sonia Sotomayor, who's a Supreme Court justice, to just be in her presence and understand how she worked her way up to being the most powerful Puerto Rican woman in the entire world, right? Sitting on the Supreme Court. But oftentimes it's the person who people dismiss as being an other who has the greatest impact on me. So right now we're about to release on Latino USA our exclusive interview with Estrella. She's the undocumented trans Mexican woman who was taken from a courtroom where she was getting an order of protection, and she was taken from that courtroom by ICE agents who were plainclothes and then put into an unmarked car. It's important for us to realize what that means. So you have human beings who are being taken by plainclothes agents and being put into unmarked cars, taken from courtrooms. And ICE agents lied about being in that courtroom. They actually put out an affidavit saying that they were not in that courtroom. Well, actually, a Latina county judge realized that there are cameras in the courtroom. So we realized that they were there, that they were lying. And then we got the interview with Estrella, who is perhaps the most unsympathetic character as a trans, undocumented, deported, with a criminal record. And yet Estrella is perhaps one of the most fascinating people that I've interviewed. And she's with me now. I think of her voice. I realize that she is now invisible to many people, and it isn't the most powerful and famous people who will say something that will impact my life.
And what drives you to continue?
So what motivates me now is the fact that I'm an American citizen, that I was born in Mexico, that I have power, that I can use my voice, that I, thank God, am able to see humanity in the people who are most unlike me, and that I am able to tell these stories, but also now I have my own company that's a nonprofit. So I'm training the next generation of young journalists to own their voice and their power. So if there was a fire under my belly, let's say 10 years ago when the census came out and we saw those numbers, over the last 10 years, that fire has become a volcano. And right now that volcano is erupting out of passion, out of love, and out of a real hope for this country, which we are a part of. No matter what anybody says, no matter what the president says, no matter how we're talked about, how we're talked down to, no matter what the slurs are that government officials use, we're here, we have been here, and we're not going anywhere. No nos vamos. So I've got work to do, and I'm committed. And I'm not slowing down. I'm following Dolores Huerta. I'm going to be there at 88 doing what she's doing, going to conferences, talking, animating, and then going out dancing if I'm lucky.